Welcome to Strange But True. Take a breath, slow down, and listen carefully. Some stories are documented, some are debated, some refuse to be explained. We tell you the stories, you decide what's true. Now, let's begin our journey. History is not only shaped by what is recorded, it is shaped by what disappears. In the earliest records, authority is described clearly. Kingship descends, God's rule. Decisions are made beyond the human world. Then, gradually, the language changes, not with announcement, not with explanation, but with absence. Terms once used freely begin to fade. Descriptions once assumed are no longer written. The records continue, but certain ideas stop appearing. The gods remain present, but they no longer rule cities. They no longer sit at the center of authority. They no longer determine succession. Their role narrows, and the texts do not explain why. This pattern repeats across Mesopotamian records. Early documents speak openly about divine rulership. Later ones do not deny it. They simply stop mentioning it. This is not erasure. Names are not scratched out. Lines are not corrected. Stories are not rewritten. The silence is cleaner than that. The scribes preserve the old records faithfully. They just do not continue the language, which suggests the change was not ideological. It was practical. Something no longer needed to be said. Earlier texts assume the reader understands how the world works. Later texts assume something else. Authority becomes procedural. Power becomes inherited. Law replaces presence. And once that system stabilizes, references to the earlier world become unnecessary. This is how historical transitions often appear, not as revolutions, but as omissions. What is no longer written is often more revealing than what remains, because silence implies consensus. It implies an explanation is no longer required. The records do not say the gods withdrew. They do not say they were replaced. They do not say the world changed. They behave as if it already had. This kind of silence is not unusual in ancient records. What changes is where it appears. When cities fall, scribes explain why. When kings fail, reasons are given. When disasters strike, causes are named. Silence usually follows events that are considered settled, things no longer in dispute, things no longer questioned, things that no longer require explanation. That is what makes this omission unusual. The early world is not corrected. It is not rejected. It is not argued against. It is simply no longer referenced. Later records do not deny divine rulership. They do not replace it with a new origin story. They proceed as if a different framework is already understood. This suggests the shift was not controversial. It did not need defense. It did not need clarification. Whatever changed, it changed completely. And once it did, the earlier language became unnecessary. The scribes continued to copy the oldest records faithfully. They preserve the strange reign lengths. They preserve divine kingship, but they do not continue writing about it themselves. This is a crucial distinction. Preservation is not endorsement, but omission is not denial. The records carry both worlds side by side. This separation matters because it shows the scribes were aware of the difference. They did not merge the worlds. They did not reconcile them. They did not attempt to explain the transition. They allowed the contradiction to stand. One world is preserved as record, the other is reflected in practice, and the space between them is left empty. That empty space is not ignorance, it is restraint, a choice to record what remains and not speculate about what no longer applies. One remembered, one lived, and the distance between them is never addressed. That distance is where the silence sits. This leaves us with a difficult realization. If the early world no longer needed explanation, and the later world required justification, then something fundamental shifted between them. The scribes did not document that moment. They documented the result, and the result was silence. History does not always announce its turning points. Sometimes it simply stops speaking and moves on. History has a way of hiding the truth inside what it chooses not to explain. Inside tales, inside myths, inside legends, inside things that feel just a little off. If this story held your attention, subscribe to Strange But True, because sometimes what sounds unbelievable is exactly where the truth hides.